Good evening, my viewers. Welcome to Essential Inspirational Highlights. This evening, I will conclude the Heart series. The lesson text for this evening is John, the 14th chapter, verses 26 and 27. John 14, 26 and 27 states, "But the Comforter, which is the Holy Ghost, whom the Father will send in my name, he shall teach you all things and bring all things to your remembrance, whatsoever I have said unto you. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid." And the topic for this evening is don't let your heart be troubled. Before addressing the text for this evening, it's imperative to share some background information. Summary of John, the 13th chapter. In chapter 13, Jesus Christ had the Last Supper with his disciples. He washed their feet and revealed that one of them would betray him. Jesus went on to make two more bombshell announcements. He informed the disciples about his upcoming departure and foretold the cock, which is the rooster, crowing after Peter's 3 denials of him. After hearing these accounts from Jesus, the disciples were just devastated, shocked, distressed, worried, distraught, troubled. Their Lord, Messiah, spiritual father, master teacher, best friend, and protector was leaving them. My listeners, the disciples loved and respected Jesus. Remember, the disciples left their families and their livelihoods to follow Jesus. They learned so much from his teachings. Let's not forget that the disciples were eyewitnesses to many miracles that Jesus performed and the countless lives that he impacted and transformed throughout his earthly ministry. Before the disciples received the heartbreaking news, the disciples felt that they had it made in the shade while Jesus was present with them. Whenever they were in a dilemma, Jesus would come to their rescue. He was always around to defend them and would fend off their enemies. Jesus and the disciples were like one happy, close knitted family with a strong bond. They felt very comfortable in his presence because Jesus was an approachable, he was an approachable and humble person. He had a genuine love for people and enjoyed being around individuals. The disciples felt at ease, asking Jesus questions without feeling put down or ridiculed. Jesus never intimidated, belittled, or made the disciples feel inferior because he was the Messiah. My listeners, I can't even begin to imagine the look on the disciples' face, well, on their faces, and the hurt they must have felt when Jesus made the announcement of his departure. So many emotions were probably exhibited on this day. They were not prepared to hear this shocking, jaw-dropping announcement. This had to have been a very emotional day for the disciples. Their world was turned upside down. Jesus leaving us? No, not Jesus. Of course, Jesus knew exactly how they were feeling. He could not leave his disciples without giving them words of comfort. Summary of John, the 14th chapter, verses 1 through 4. In chapter 14, verses 1 through 4, Jesus Christ gave his disciples some words of comfort. Jesus stated to the disciples that he was preparing a place for them in heaven. He described God's house in heaven as having many mansions. At the appropriate time, Jesus said that he would come back for them and they would live with him forever. Jesus indicated that they knew the way. Summary of John, the 14th chapter, verses 5 through 25. After the bombshell announcement from Jesus, three disciples, Thomas, Philip, and Judas, not Judas Iscariot. And Judas was a very common name at that time, but it was not the disciple that betrayed Jesus. These three disciples, again, Thomas, Philip and Judas had some questions and statements addressed to Jesus in verses 5 through 25. Thomas stated, Jesus, we don't know the way. We don't know where you're going. And how can you expect us? How can you expect for us to know the way? Let me repeat that question. Thomas stated, Jesus, we don't know where you are going. And how can you expect for us to know the way? Philip said, show us the way, Father, and we will be content. Show us the Father, and we will be content. Then Judas asked Jesus, how is it that you will only reveal yourself to us, but not to the world? Jesus Christ, like a tender father, with no harsh words or belittling, addressed the statements and answered the questions from the three disciples. In verse 26, which begins the text for this evening, Jesus made a promise to the disciples. John the 14th chapter, verse 26 states, but the Comforter, which is the Holy Ghost, whom the Father will send in my name, he shall teach you all things and bring all things to your remembrance, whatsoever I have said unto you. Jesus wanted the disciples to know that he was not abandoning them. He was not leaving them to fend for themselves while he was away in heaven, making preparations for them. They did not have to worry or panic because Jesus assured the disciples that the Father would send in his name the Comforter, which is the Holy Ghost. The Holy Ghost would teach them all things and bring to remembrance, remind them, call to their mind memory of all the teachings that Jesus taught them. The disciples will not be left in the world clueless on what to say, forgetting what Jesus taught them, being confused about their mission, where to go, who to minister to. The Holy Ghost will be present with them throughout their lifetime to guide them with their plans of action and spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ and living a life pleasing to God. John the 14th chapter, verse 27 states, peace I leave with you. My peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. Jesus expressed that because of the peace he was giving and leaving the disciples, that they should not be troubled, meaning that the disciples would not be disturbed, worried, distressed, upset, agitated, or bothered about how they were going to make it on earth without having him in their presence. The inner peace will give the disciples confidence to overcome their adversities. They will be able to take control of any situation they were confronted with. The world could not give them this peace that Jesus offered to the disciples. So, my listeners, while Jesus is away, making preparations for us in heaven, we must take the advice that Jesus gave the disciples. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. The world cannot give us peace. We are living in a world infiltrated with evil and chaos. Trouble is all around us. Famines, wars, and rumors of more wars are already taking place. Violence has gone wild. It's an epidemic. It's like a plague. And respect has been thrown out the window. Greed is the norm. The cost of living is skyrocketing. People's finances are dwindling. Ongoing power struggles, widespread racism, and the list goes on. Even through all this turmoil, Jesus Christ can give us inner peace while living in this world. Remember, my listeners, don't let your heart be troubled. We have a job to do in spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ to a dying world which needs the peace of God. Let me repeat that statement. We have a job to do in spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ to a dying world which needs the peace of God. Let's continue the Great Commission in spreading the gospel until Jesus Christ comes back for us. This is the conclusion of the Heart series. Thank you, my viewers, for tuning in to Essential Inspirational Highlights. I am your host, Sister Janie. I will be back in 2 weeks on Friday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Have a good evening.